Welcome back to Southern Life. We're going to continue looking at ICE and immigration detentions and arrests in the state of Florida. We're going to start off by meeting Franklin. He was arrested in Indian River County, which is north of West Palm Beach. He has a West Palm Beach address. He was arrested for no valid driver's license and entering the state of Florida illegally. I believe that isn't exactly an immigration hold, but it's a particular charge of being in the state of Florida while being illegally in the United States. And I guess the purpose of that charge would be to hold him for an immigration arrest. However, it doesn't guarantee an immigration arrest. In the state of Florida, many counties are dealing with the problem of not having enough jail cells, which means that many individuals are released despite the fact they're illegal. And even counties like Polk, which profess to do everything possible to do everything to get rid of illegal aliens in their county, have to release people who are here illegally because they don't have enough place to store them. The particular charge that he has is part of a new list of criminal charges you can face in Florida that have the goal of being able to hold an individual with the purpose of having them detained by ICE. Now, he was arrested on Interstate 95 near Vero Beach, Florida, and his address is listed out of West Palm Beach. We looked up his address on Google Maps, and he has it blurred, so there seems to be something to hide here, but his mugshot is public. Franklin's occupation is listed as a painter, so most likely he was traveling to Indian River County for work and returning back to West Palm Beach or heading from West Palm Beach to work. Regardless, he was detained in Indian River County, and he has an enhancement of a charge that should keep him there incarcerated. His detention was by Florida highway troopers, and his nationality is not listed. Most people entering the United States voluntarily turn themselves into Border Patrol. They decide whether to deport or to grant a temporary status. But individuals like Franklin decide to completely bypass Border Patrol inspections and enter the United States illegally. If they decide to come to the state of Florida, they will face this particular charge. It's a new charge in the state of Florida that is aimed at keeping people like him from coming to Florida. They may not face federal charges, but now they're going to face state charges in Florida for entering the United States without inspection. Now, most people try their luck with the federal system in hopes that they can get temporary status granted. Individuals like him decided for some reason or another that they weren't going to go through that process. Most individuals like Franklin who decide to bypass the federal system is because they most likely know that they don't qualify to be here. So if you don't qualify to be here, you shouldn't be here. And while the federal government may not do anything about it, the state of Florida is providing criminal charges for individuals who bypass Border Patrol inspections. This law should serve as a deterrent for people like Franklin to avoid the state of Florida if they are illegally in the country. To be fair, the federal government's temporary status platform was very fair to people in allowing individuals who seem like good potential candidates to have their residency in the United States. Many people who went through that system today are going to face deportation because the federal government is no longer issuing an extension of that program. However, that program did allow those individuals to get a driver's license and start the process to become a U.S. citizen. Now, in the state of Florida, people like Ashley Moody had made misleading statements saying that people under temporary status were here illegally. The state of Florida, under its new law, the same law he was arrested for, had to specify that yes, the federal government did allow these people legal entry in the United States. They were properly vetted by the federal agencies to determine that the people that got the temporary status were people who seemed like they conformed to the idea of possibly becoming a U.S. citizen. But individuals like Franklin who don't take that avenue are clearly individuals who do not qualify. This is the real definition of an illegal immigrant, somebody who purposely bypass Border Patrol inspections. The overwhelming majority of people who we see in the state of Florida who are being labeled as illegals by people like Ashley Moody are people who actually did try to do it the legal way. So let's understand that the overwhelming majority of people on temporary status are those who tried to do things the legal way by not bypassing Border Patrol inspections. Then you have individuals like Franklin who outright didn't enter the United States legally, and these individuals don't have that provision, don't have that opportunity illegally in the United States. Problems that states face is that the federal government will not exactly deport these individuals. So the state of Florida has determined to make a law for people in that exact situation. Interesting enough, the federal government will issue deportation orders for people who they vetted and approved, but for some reason in their court hearing, they determined not to let these people stay in the country. So it's a complete crapshoot when it comes to immigration. Hopping over to Highlands County, this is the Sebring area in South Central Florida, south of Orlando. I didn't really find too many immigration-related arrests here, but I did see people with some crazy charges. Meet Mr. Anthony Barrett. It seems like there's definitely some very angry people in this part of Florida. He was charged with battery on an officer, fleeing and eluding, firing a weapon, discharging a weapon, resisting an officer, violence, other crimes, causing harm to police, animals, trespassing on property, being armed, intimidating, threatening to kill. This guy's definitely got a lot of problems. Let's not forget that many of the most violent people in our society are not the ones that are here illegally, but the ones like Mr. Barrett here who are undeportable. When it comes to Highlands County, Florida, they don't seem to be too focused on immigration right now. They seem to be more focused on dealing with the absolutely deranged locals who have absolutely lost their minds, going on completely violent crime sprees, racking up an onslaught of criminal charges. It's like these people were playing Grand Theft Auto and trying to see how many stars they could get on purpose. Just on March 13th, their most recent arrest records, just look at the vocabulary of some of the charges that these guys are facing. These are definitely scary and dangerous individuals who racked up an onslaught of criminal charges. Now, many people in Highlands County will tell you that the illegals have ransacked their county and that the people there that are working illegally are horrible, committing horrible crimes. But after examining the arrest records from Highland County, I have to admit, it seems like it's the locals who are violent and terrifying. But this is kind of the reality. And I don't think the Highlands County Police Department there in a little hick town in Florida is going to miss the opportunity to arrest some illegals if they get the opportunity. I mean, we're talking about South Central Florida here. So if there's some misappropriation among the illegal community, I'm sure the officers there wouldn't miss the opportunity to go after it. So to be honest, you know, what you hear from people in the community versus what you see in the arrest records sometimes doesn't correlate very well. In the community, people here in Highlands County say things like the Mexicans and the people working in agriculture, the illegals, are doing horrible things in our community. Then you go on the arrest records and you're like, no, wait, it seems like it's the locals who are doing those things. But hey, to each their own interpretation. Now, Highlands County is in a very interesting predicament because the industries like oranges, for example, have a good, strong grip on the local economy, law enforcement, entirely. The county, the law, everything in Highlands County is in the palm of the orange industries. They own most of the land. They have a lot of political power and a lot of interests, and just about everybody plays for their team. In fact, they've made it difficult for people that are employed self to be able to prosper in this county by adding burdensome regulations to ensure that the local labor force is disposable to their industries. And this doesn't just affect what happens in Highlands County. For example, here in Bradenton, Florida, we have a Tropicana plant. Where do you think those oranges come from? They come from, of course, Highlands County. I don't think Highlands County, way out there in Central Florida, is going to be very proactive about targeting illegal immigrants, because the people in power are the ones who benefit the most from their presence. And this is kind of the two phases of Florida. On one side, the way they feel, and on the other side, the powers to be and their financial interests. So I really doubt that in Highlands County, Florida, they're going to get too proactive about immigration enforcement when the people who have the entire county at their disposal are the same ones who are profiting massively from the exploitation of migrant workers. As soon as you drive out of the urban core, you run into nothing more but orange fields right until you get to about Lakewood Ranch. This entire area is fed and thrives on the notion of oranges, the citrus industry. People who work in those fields, we know very well who they are. Do you think they're going to destroy the entire agricultural industry that they've been working for decades to corrupt every official to obtain? It's difficult to believe that notion. Now, the only thing that would really change anything is rezoning. That means urban development. That's happening in Sarasota County. It's happening in Manatee County. But even with the crunch in affordability that we're facing in Florida, people have been deterred from moving to Highlands County because of how poor and impoverished it is. And let's not forget that the reason this county is poor and impoverished is because of the grip that the citrus industry has on the local economy by suppressing all industry to make sure that the labor force is disposable to them. It's absolute poverty and misery in this county, and it's because of the industries at play. The citrus industry. A citrus industry that depends heavily on illegal labor. But in this particular county of Florida, we're not going to see the same type of immigration efforts as you have seen in other parts of the state, because rezoning, redevelopment of the agricultural lands into single family homes or other new development here is impossible. Nobody is going to move to this crap hole in Central Florida, far from beaches, that has no economy and that has been rigged up to ensure that people are not able to make enough money to live by the same industries who own all the land, the citrus. So they have been suppressing the local economy on purpose to have the labor force at their disposal. And land development here, redevelopment for single family home construction, will not happen. People simply are not going to move here. Sure, in more attractive parts of the state, redevelopment is a possibility. But out here in South Central Florida, it's an unattractive place for people to live, and everything has been suppressed on purpose to ensure that poverty reigns king so that the labor force can be at the disposal of the citrus industries. Moving into Naples, Florida, Collier County, meet Mr. Gonzalez. Now, this individual has been arrested 8 times on driver's license related charges over many years. At one point, several years back, he had a hold, so I may even assume he's probably been deported before. Now, I don't know his legal status based off of the Collier County website, but we can assume if he's been having so many issues with his driver's license that perhaps this individual does not have a legal status in the United States. He might have some strings attached, like a wife that's a citizen or kids that are born here, that perhaps prevents him from being deported. But maybe, even if he has been deported, he probably can afford to come back into the United States. Now, I lived in Collier County in Naples for 20 years. I don't know this guy, but if I had to take an educated guess, this guy's a Mexican national who's probably been in the United States for decades. Probably all his kids and probably even grandkids are U.S. citizens. Maybe his wife is a U.S. citizen. Maybe there's nothing left for him in Mexico. I'm going to assume he's probably wealthy, has a lot of money, and likes living in Naples, Florida, doesn't want to live anywhere else. It doesn't matter how many times you arrest him and deport him. Anytime he's free, he's going to end up back in Naples, Florida. Now, the program of laws that we talked about for the individual over there in Vero Beach is a law that also includes implementations for individuals who are subsequent offenders of violations like not having a driver's license. That same thought of legal process under these new laws in Florida would mean that this individual with his 8th subsequent driver's license offense would face something like 2 years minimum mandatory in the state of Florida prison system. So we're talking, when he gets arrested again, in theory, Collier County could have tacked on these extra charges, which would have meant that he would have to do not just jail time, but also stay time. I think it's like 2 to 4 years after your subsequent violation. So he's at the point where, in theory, on his 8th no driver's license arrest, he should be getting that, enhancement. They probably didn't do it at the arresting point, but I'm pretty sure when he goes to court, the judge will implement this law. But here's an individual who has been arrested in Naples, Florida, 8 times for driver's license violations. It's an individual who just doesn't learn their lesson, and the new immigration laws in Florida target problems like this by providing an extra enhancement. It's not just you're going to do some jail time in your local county. You're going to have to face some state prison time because you just don't seem to learn your lesson. And after that, once they have their time served in the state system, then they can get deported. The problem with an individual like this is when they do get deported, they'll be here in a few days. If your kids and your grandkids live here and you got nothing left in Mexico and you've already been arrested 8 times and now they send you to do 2 years in prison and you get back out, you're probably going to do it again. This individual, it doesn't matter what you do to him, they can lock him up for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. When he gets out, he's coming to Naples because this is home to him. And the sad thing for individuals like this is that they're the ones who have the most reason to be in the United States. I'm going to guarantee you this guy's got kids and grandkids most likely here in the United States. And I don't know this individual. I'm just assuming because I'm from here and I'm probably familiar with the type of scenario he's in based off of his criminal charges because I've known many people in that same exact situation. I mean, if you were going to pick between somebody who comes to the United States for the first time from another country or somebody who's already been here for decades, has kids, has grandkids, he hasn't been arrested for drugs, he hasn't been arrested for robberies, he's been arrested for not having a valid driver's license. Unfortunately, the U.S. system will never provide this guy with the opportunity to be a U.S. citizen because of his subsequent arrests for not having a valid driver's license. Logic alone would tell you that somebody who's been here for decades, has kids, has grandkids, this is the type of individual who has the most right to have the opportunity for legality, but because of these driver's license arrests, he's never going to get it. This is also a type of individual who probably has been paying taxes in the United States into a system that he will never reap a single reward from. I have known many people in his situation in Naples, and most of them, the overwhelming majority, pay their taxes every single year, and sometimes they make a lot of money. We have people who are U.S. citizens who do everything they can to evade paying taxes, and you got individuals who aren't from here and volunteer to every year pay their taxes accordingly because their pride will not let them not do that, and they're paying into a system that will never reward them for what they're putting in. It's just a matter of legality. They don't want to evade taxes. They don't want to do things the wrong way, but life puts them in a situation where they have to. These are individuals who sacrifice everything so their kids and grandkids could be in this United States, which is considered the best country for them to be in. So they're individuals who have put everything at stake, everything at risk to make sure that their kids have a better future. Now, we can scroll through hundreds of arrests of parents being arrested for not paying child support, cruelty towards their family members, and all those types of charges. So if you have somebody who's a U.S. born citizen and they get arrested for abusing their family members, not paying child support, cruelty towards their children, the list goes on and on and on, but they're U.S. born citizens. So you have this individual who has sacrificed everything, including his freedom, to make sure that his children can have a better future. It's hard to relate with the notion of who deserves it more. These are individuals who, by their own merit, would never end up on the wrong side of the law. But because the United States will not extend them legal status, these individuals who are probably the most deserving because they've been in this country, they've adapted to the culture, they've decided that this is where they want their family to be. They've never broke the law other than those that incidentally have to happen if you're undocumented, like not having a driver's license. And if I had to make a final assumption about this individual, I bet he spent over $100,000 in his lifetime with lawyers trying to find a legal avenue that for him will never exist because of a driver's license charge that he had to incur. It's kind of a messed up situation. It makes absolutely no sense, but this is something that they are fixed on when it comes to immigration. Individuals like this guy right here, who at the end of the day, give him 5 years, give him 10 years, give him 20 years, this is home to them. It's not going to change, and you could deport them 10 times, give them 20 years in prison. When they get out, this is home. It's not going to change for them. You also have to admit the obvious, that this guy is not letting his legal status detain him from doing whatever the crap he has to do. He understands that just incidentally every year you're going to get arrested at least once with the driving without a valid driver's license charge, which is crazy because, in Naples, Florida, people do get pulled over quite a bit. I've always wondered, like, what are the probabilities of you getting pulled over in Naples, Florida if you're driving without a driver's license? And it's pretty freaking often. I wouldn't doubt that this guy's probably been detained 20 or 30 times, and he's probably had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes as well, because in Naples, Florida, they profile you. And once they know where you live, what properties you have, what cars you drive, who your family members are, they're always going to know where you are and be able to find you again. And I wouldn't doubt that this guy has paid a substantial amount of money in bribes as well. And many times he would have been arrested, but he was able to bribe his way out of it. So this is a complicated legal issue that this guy's got here. I mean, without a doubt, the fact that he subsequently has done this 8 times means that this guy is fixed on living in Naples. Now, there's places like Chicago, California, the state of Washington that will issue you a driver's license that you can go there and kind of have a little bit more sense of freedom and stuff like that. He shows Naples, so there's something holding him here. Polk County, Florida, the land of Grady Judd. This county is the type of place I wouldn't want to live in. I grew up in Naples by the beach, one of the better places to live in Florida. Polk County is like towards the bottom of the list of places you want to live in Florida. I mean, it's not as bad as Highlands County, but it's pretty much getting there. You know what? I might have to take that back. If I had to pick between Highlands County or Polk County, I think I would almost lean towards Highland County. So that's kind of an interesting question of which one of these counties is worse. Jose Rodriguez, without a doubt Cuban. Polk County doesn't say that, but you can see he's Cuban. He was arrested for trafficking in credit cards, petty theft, and fuel convenience. Now, what he was doing is something that has been happening with the Cuban community in Florida for a long time. They have fake credit cards. Now, the methods to obtain these fake credit cards varies tremendously, and they've been evolving with the ages. But this is a guy that is literally part of a criminal syndicate. And what they do is they get a hold of fake and stolen credit cards. The methods are vast. They have machines where they print and imprint the credit cards. Sometimes they buy the information from the dark web, but there's other methods to obtain credit card information. Now, I know some of the methods that they use to obtain credit card information, and if I told you, you wouldn't believe me, so let me not even tell you. At the end of the day, this scheme has been happening for decades in the state of Florida, so it isn't a surprise that there's a few other methods out there that have never been detected by law enforcement, because after all, if they had been detected, they wouldn't have been running the scheme for decades like they have. Now, why would he buy fuel with a stolen credit card? So this guy has access to innumerable credit cards. He can just get credit card information. When he gets this credit card information, he has to buy something that he can resell to turn it into cash. So what is one of the most common things people have to buy? Fuel. But not for vehicles. We're talking for heavy equipment. So he's got a few buddies that have dump trucks and semi trucks. Now these guys are spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $8,000 a month on fuel to run their rig. So he says, hey man, I'm going to save you 50% on fuel cost. So he's got a pickup truck with some very heavy duty suspension that's hidden, and he goes around filling up his diesel truck. So he's going to have an F-350 or a Dodge Cummins or something like that. And he's just going to go around filling up throughout the entire state of Florida. And instead of going to a gas tank, it goes to a hidden compartment. So they steal the fuel with the credit cards. And notice again, he didn't have possession of stolen credit cards. He had trafficking in stolen credit cards. So this guy has a system in place. Steal the fuel with stolen credit cards and then re-hustle the fuel to people who have heavy equipment. He also had a petty theft charge, which makes me think that he got too comfortable with what he was doing. He might have gone to a Walgreens or a gas station and just bought a small purchase, but you have to make these small purchases to test out the credit cards. Now, when you see that petty theft charge, you're probably thinking he might have slipped up, or, why is this guy running this huge scheme of fake credit cards and then he gets caught up on some petty theft? But he does have to do some petty theft to scope out businesses, surveillance. He might have to find out if a credit card that he has is valid, if a new method works. So yeah, petty theft kind of plays into the scheme. It's probably how he got caught, but it wasn't intentional. I don't think if he's running a field theft ring, he's going to end up stuck on some petty theft charges because he's using the fake credit cards to buy candy at Walgreens or something. But regardless, I don't really know the details of this case, but this is how this whole thing works. Now, most Cubans are U.S. citizens. At this point, this guy might be a U.S. citizen or he might be a permanent resident. There was a time when if they caught you in Florida doing this type of crap and you weren't a citizen yet, you would get deported. So being a Cuban, 95% chance he's a U.S. citizen. He can't be deported. He might be a permanent resident. Now, if he's a permanent resident, he can be deported, but they really don't like to deport permanent residents. But this guy is a leech to society. If you get that deep into organized crime and crime syndicates and trafficking credit cards to steal the fuel, this is the type of dude that if he gets out, he's already in the game. It's difficult for somebody who has just a lucrative hustle to give it up and then go work back in society after leaving a prison system where he's going to meet more contacts and become even more sophisticated at whatever the crap he was doing. Because when he goes into a state jail, prison actually, he's going to meet a bunch of other Cubans that were doing the same thing, and they're going to put him on more games. So this homie's little hustle isn't going to go away. So this is a person that's like a literal detriment to society. And when they're that deep into crime, this type of crime, it's a very high income, very lucrative. You got a lot of criminal connections. And when you're part of a crime syndicate, if you've never heard this term, so these are like criminal networks that are connected. You got the credit card theft. They got to do with the dump trucks. They got to do with the insurance fraud. All these guys, the traffickers are also part of these networks. So once you're into this type of crime, you're kind of interlinked with other people who are doing other types of crimes as well. And they're always up on the newest hustle, the newest scheme. So these are people that are really deep into criminal activity. Also in Polk County, Florida, meet Mr. Espinosa. He had a no-issued driver's license and an immigration ICE hold. In Polk County, meet Mr. Ayala. He has had subsequent issues without a valid driver's license. The new laws in Florida will address that little problem with some prison time. But here's the issue with this individual. The bond is racking up nearly $10,000. Polk County Sheriff's Office, Grady Judd himself has said, we don't have enough jail cells in our county to detain every single one of these people. In other words, they got to pick and choose who's getting deported and who's going to get bailed out. In the case of the people getting bailed out, it's kind of like a money-making scheme if you think about it. The American system is really something else. Even in Polk County, Florida, this individual has no ICE hold on him. And don't get me wrong, there's U.S. citizens who get charged with the same exact thing for some reason. I don't understand. They get a DUI, they get their license taken away. They decide to keep driving without a driver's license because a court ordered them not to have a driver's license for some reason. But we all know that's probably not the case here. Then in Polk County, you got individuals like Mr. Cruz who just don't get the point that they can't drive without a valid driver's license and continue to subsequently offend this charge. Now, interesting, with the new law in Florida, they are able to get an enhancement for these charges. The question is, when they get arrested, law enforcement isn't charging them with that. Will the court system later charge these individuals with that law? Because again, it's a provision that the governor made for them to get these enhancements, but not everybody is getting them. What's really happening here? Again, the American legal system is quite the freaking jungle. Maybe they could charge these individuals in the future, release them, and retroactively go back and be like, hey, by the way, when you got locked up, you also violated this charge. And now that you're going in for this charge, there's an ICE deportation hold on you. Could they retroactively implement this law after the person's arrested? So maybe this individual won't get that charge now, but maybe 6 months from now, when they're ready to go get them, they can say, hey, by the way, you violated this particular state statute back then when you got arrested. We're just now charging you for it. I don't know if they can do that. But again, the United States legal system is quite the freaking place. Here in Sarasota, this Canadian was charged with some cartridges and some herbs and stuff like that. But I looked up his address in Canada, and he doesn't live in a developer neighborhood. He seems to live in like a run-of-the-mill neighborhood. Notice how Canadians in Canada do their own construction. You know, like Americans that can't get their little nails dirty because they might break a little nail. I don't know why Americans can't do their own work, but these are Canadians. They do their own work. They don't need illegals in Canada. Regardless, here's a Canadian, comes to Sarasota Park, decides that he wants to blow some smoke, and at the end of the day, he's not illegally in the United States, but he is from somewhere else breaking the law. Meet 23-year-old Ernesto from El Salvador. He is a construction worker in the Sarasota area who was arrested for no valid driver's license. Did he have to be driving? Probably not. Did he decide to drive? Absolutely. He was arrested for his driving incident, and about 2 weeks later, they charged him with an ICE immigration hold. Now, Sarasota County has been persistently going after people who are breaking the law and are not here legally, and they are implementing arrest for deportation holds. However, I've never seen the Sarasota County Sheriff making a grandiose statement about everything he's doing. He just does it, and he doesn't talk about it. So there's just kind of a modus of operation that's a lot smarter. The problem is that many of these sheriffs in Florida like to be in front of the camera. They like the notoriety and the fame that comes from all their press conferences. Obama deported more people than everybody else, and the migrants love him because with one hand he says, I love you. With the other hand, he quietly deported more people than Trump. There's this criminal charge called diverting public funds for personal gains. You may have not heard of this here in the United States, but I was born in Cuba, and that's a very common charge in Cuba. Basically, it's using your public position for personal gain, thus diverting public funds. What a lot of these sheriffs in Florida are doing is that they're diverting public resources to promote their own personal political careers. Diverting public funds for personal gain is actually a crime in the state of Florida. But when you're the sheriff, who's going to come arrest you? Nobody will. And that's what's really the problem in Florida, that many of these law enforcement agencies are using their public positions to fund their own personal political careers, and that's really not the way that's supposed to go. So Sarasota County is much more proactive about putting people on ICE than Polk County. They do a better job at keeping the illegal population low. And you know, they don't need to do as many press conferences to accomplish a better result on the ground. And Sarasota is a high-income county. It's a much more sophisticated type of person that decides to come to Sarasota than the people that end up picking berries in Polk County. So here in Sarasota, you got Russians marrying Americans. You got Slavics, Polish, Ukrainians doing the same thing. And then you got the people on the student visas that are wealthy in their home country. So the face of immigration in Sarasota takes a more diverse and complicated scenario than the Latin American superficial thing that people are actually wanting done. Arturo Lopez, Mexicano. He was arrested for a city ordinance of lodging outdoors. Basically, the homie is homeless. They put an ICE detention hold on him with good reason. You cannot come to the United States illegally to be a bum. If you come to the United States illegally because you got a wife and kids you're trying to take care of and you're trying to make your family's future better, even though it's against the law, at least it's somewhat relatable to somebody trying to make a better future. But when you come to the United States to be homeless, sleeping on a sidewalk, you're not going to garnish sympathy from anybody. I mean, even other Latinos that are here illegally are going to look at you and say, what the crap is wrong with you? I got no idea what led to this man being homeless. Most people that come illegally are young, healthy, vibrant, And sometimes bad things happen to people. I've met people, like I met a Mexican guy in one of these counties in Florida who's homeless. I'm not going to say where he's at, but he's homeless and he actually lost a leg. And now he's part of like I mean, there's no nice way of saying it. He's part of like a panhandling gang who targets high traffic areas. The issue is, though, he lost an entire freaking leg. He was here illegally working, fell off a roof or something, lost a leg while working, and now he's part of this panhandling gang that goes around with hookers and panhandlers from place to place. It's like 5 or 6 people who share a hotel room and they're all in it together. And basically the homie's a panhandler, but he did lose a freaking leg. So yes, you're here illegally. Yes, you are panhandling, but you did lose a leg. At some point, he was trying to do things the right way and things kind of went the wrong way, and now he's stuck here and he's not going to go back to his country missing a leg. So it's one of those weird situations that happens to people that leaves them in a really weird spot. You know, when you break the law and you go somewhere you're not supposed to go, and now you're automatically on the wrong side of the law, it opens the window for a lot of things to go wrong. You know, you hear the success stories about the guys that went to the United States and they made a little house and then they bought a bigger house and then they bought some land, and one day they show up with a brand new pickup truck and the cartel takes it away from them the next day, but they had it for that one day. What you don't hear is about the people that never make it to the United States, the people that didn't cross that river, the people that are still in that desert, that never left the river, never left the desert, the people that came to the United States and things went awfully wrong for them. For these individuals, staying in their home country would have been a better prospect. We're hearing stories now about the people that are getting deported. And it seems like if you listen to their story about how they came to the United States, how much money they spent to come here illegally, because you have to pay the cartels to get over here, all this money spent, all these dangers taken, all these risks that these people took. Many times they left with 4 people and only 2 made it to the United States, you know. And you calculate all the costs and risks that these people took to come to the United States, and you realize that they perhaps would have been better off staying in their home country. Meet Rijo, a Dominican from Sarasota. He simply has an ICE immigration hold on him. Doesn't really explain what it's for. They're just gonna hold on to the homie and put him back where he needs to go. If you look at his mugshot, he looks pretty chill. He's listing his occupation as unemployed. The homie doesn't seem faced with the notion of going back to the DR. The nightlife here in Sarasota isn't the same. The women are not as easy and fun as in the DR. The United States just wasn't working for the homie anyways. Back in Polk County, Florida, the Lakeland Police Department arrested Mauricio. Now check this out. He's got 2 charges of aggravated assault with a weapon, discharging a firearm, and an immigration hold. If you are here illegally, you do not get involved in violent crime. It's people like him that make it hard for the people that are coming here to work to have a better future, when you got idiots like this that are coming here illegally and are committing all types of crazy illegal activity. If you are here illegally and you are discharging firearms and aggravating people and stuff like that, you're going to get deported ASAP. This is the type of person who is an absolute detriment to society. Not only is he not supposed to be here, but then he's trying to hurt people. Why the crap is this person even here? ¿A dónde está el chacal de la trompeta pa que se lo lleve a los leones? He's not even 30 years old yet. He's a grown adult though, and he's doing some horrible things with his life. Imagine coming to the United States, not being here legally, and then deciding to get involved in some type of crap that only homegrown gangsters are allowed to do. The only gun this guy should be playing with is a nail gun. This guy's completely out of line. You like playing with guns? Get on a roof. You know, put that desire to have a gun in your hand to a good use on top of a roof, not behind a bar, okay? The homie's totally out of line. And it's people like this that you have to just admit, no matter what side you stand on immigration, that the homie's got to go. I mean, even other homies will be like, yeah, mándalo para su casa. Meet Manuel Pedroso. Now, why this homie decided to rock this haircut alone is enough reason to deport him.
I'm going to be honest with you. Nobody wants you here.
That's vastly out of context, but Volusia County is just to the east of Orlando, Florida, and they arrested this individual on 3 charges. He had no valid driver's license. He had a hideous haircut. It's not a crime, but it should be. He left the scene of a crash. Look at that. He has no driver's license, and then he decides to flee after a crash. But he was also charged with something interesting, which is being an illegal alien. Now, most of the time, you don't hear that criminal charge being placed on people. But if you got a haircut like the homie does, the least they could do is acknowledge his effort. I mean, the homie looks contemptible. If you were a police officer in Daytona Beach, Florida, or Deltona, wherever the crap they picked this guy up, and you saw this homie, wouldn't you pull him over and charge him with being illegal? I know I would. You've heard of Joe Dirt? Well, meet Juan Tierra. Meet Javier Francisco from Haines City, Florida. Now, Haines City is just to the southwest of Orlando. He was arrested for no valid driver's license, and he does have an immigration hold for deportation. The homie looks like he would do some great construction or landscaping work. I don't know why we're getting rid of him. You just don't deport people like this. This is the type of homie that looks like he'd do some good landscaping work. This is the type of dude, if he doesn't show up to work, they know he got deported because he hasn't missed a day to work in years. Bro, you can just look at this guy and tell he's got good work ethic. Venice, Florida. Luis Diego Williams. Now, the homie doesn't even look repentant. It's like he's finally getting deported. He got an ICE immigration hold on him. Now, this homie, I believe he's Costa Rican. I'm not really sure what the code CR would stand for. I don't think he's Croatian because his name sounds very Spanish. But the homie is a mechanic in Venice, Florida, and he looks very satisfied. If you look at his mugshot, it's like the homie's just been wanting to get the crap out of the United States. Imagine being from Costa Rica, a beautiful tropical country with no pressure from society at all. I'm not going to lie, this man right here looks like the happiest person I've ever seen. It's like finally he can go back home to his country. Maybe they got him on child support over here or something like. I don't know what he's got going on. But the homie looks happy. You know, I wish they'd send me to freaking Costa Rica. Unfortunately, if I get deported, it's back to Cuba, and it's not as nice as Costa Rica. But if I was Costa Rican, I wouldn't be upset about leaving. All this traffic and bills and clients calling you, telling you their car broke down. If I had to be a mechanic, and I think I've had this guy on Uber. Yeah, now that I think about it, this guy has been on Uber with me before. He's a mechanic. He actually, yeah, I know who this guy is. Okay, so, you know, you can be a mechanic in the United States. He actually tipped me, which is a rare thing for a Hispanic. At the end of the day, the homie was a mechanic in Venice, which is right outside of Sarasota. And now that I think about it, I have met this homie. He's pretty cool. He actually tipped me $4, which ain't bad. The homie was, you know, fixing cars and stuff, but pretty sure being in Costa Rica is a crap load better than being a mechanic in Venice. Now, don't get me wrong, Venice is one of the most beautiful cities in Florida, but there's no red tide constantly back-to-back in Costa Rica, or high rent payments, or none of the stresses that you would have here in America. So I can kind of understand if I was getting deported to Costa Rica, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. The homie probably came over here, made a crap load of money, and he's going to retire early, something that I certainly won't be here in the United States. I'm going to be 95 years old talking about I'm in the hood with some homeless people for an interview type of thing, because cost of living, I wish I got deported to Costa Rica. I'm not going to lie. All right, everybody. So those are immigration arrests throughout the entirety of the state of Florida. We've had people from El Salvador, Mexico. Some people are going back to their families in a beautiful country and where they actually need to be. And other people will undoubtedly find their way back into the United States, where everything they know and love is at already. This is a situation of immigration in the United States. Some of these people will eventually find their way back over into the United States. And some of them were doing a great thing here for us. Let's just be honest. I mean, some of these people, like the guy with the whole Mauricio guy with the gun thing, that homie needs to go. The guy with the wacky haircut, he needs to go. But some of these people were doing some great services here in the United States, and we're probably taking a loss in some of these people. Maybe not all of them, but some of them are definitely a loss. And then you got some individuals like these violent rednecks in Highlands County, which we can't deport. You got some Cubans that are doing some horrendous things and are probably U.S. citizens we can't deport. You got this redneck right here road raging somebody with an F-350. Some people, we wish we could get rid of them, but unfortunately there's nothing we could do. And the thing about deportation is that we have some horrible people that are from here, and we can do nothing about them. And sometimes we send some people somewhere else that could probably do the whole world more favor by having them here. I think we should have learned on today's video that everybody's circumstance is different. You got some people that came to the United States and probably resented coming over here. I don't know why I feel like this Dominican guy is one of those people that just came over here and he's like, you know what? This really ain't for me. This whole working thing, it ain't really up. Yo estaba vago, pero creo que yo estaba tranquilo aquí en Dominicana. Ahora esta gente quiere que uno trabaje todos los días. You know, like this guy may have not been cut out for America. I can just see in his face. You got individuals that, for a fact, when they leave the United States, are going to feel a lot of pain, resentment. Everything they know and love is here in the United States, and they were contributing more to the United States than they were taking from it. You got some people that are violent and don't belong here. Those people definitely need to go. You got other individuals that broke the law. If you don't have a driver's license, you shouldn't be driving. It's the law. Even if you're here illegally, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to drive. At that point, you're getting too comfortable with your situation, and that you can take an Uber, you can ride a bicycle, but no, you got to get an F-350. There you go. So if you break the law, you know what happens. And then you got some individuals that honestly are probably happy to go home, because the United States is a place where you have to work, you have to follow laws, rules, and regulations. It's a very demanding, high-paced country that isn't for everybody. And those individuals are probably going to be very happy to go back to their home countries where life is a little bit easier. It isn't so hectic and demanding.